All right, welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Ty from the Unemployed Architects. Today, sitting down with good friend, fellow musician, Ryan Wolf. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm good. How you doing today?
It's weird to call you Ryan. I don't normally do that. It felt awkward. Wolf.
I know, right?
Wolf.
Yeah, Wolferton.
Wolferton. Wanted to get into your new album, which is why you're here today, I think, mostly to talk about that. Can you tell us a little bit about the project and kind of what went into all of it?
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you know, the project is called No Place to Be. It's a folk album that I put together. Started working on the project in May. I wanted it to be very stripped back and kind of organic sounding. It's just acoustic and me singing, really. And it's 7 songs, 7 folky songs that are basically just about my current lifestyle, being on the road. I travel a lot. And just about the things that kind of go on when, you spend your life living out of a suitcase. The things that are going on with you and the things that are happening back home. And kind of like that contrast of, the two and just like how it all works out. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And when did that album come out? When did it drop?
So, like I said, I finished it. I actually finished everything, like the mix and everything, back in August, and I just released it on the 14th of October.
All right.
So it's been out for a few weeks now.
And how long did the recording process take?
The recording process, I know we've talked about it before.
Well,
it was
I should mention that, you did it at my house, so I know a lot of this information already. But this isn't for me,
yeah.
So, I'm trying to ask the questions that, the outsider might appreciate a little bit more, because obviously I know a lot of what went into it. And right. Let's just talk about that a little bit. So you said the recording, you were getting ready to talk about the recording process.
Yeah, the recording process was the most simple it's ever been for me. I mean, I really was going for something as simple as just the sound of me playing in a room, and I didn't want anything, much fancier than that, which is why, it's just acoustic and vocals. But yeah, I mean, a few of the songs I had written last year, and then the rest just kind of, came to me around spring of this year.
It seems like you wrote a lot of them when you were actually here, like at my place.
Yeah, I think some of the riffs not really riffs, but some of the melodies had already kind of been there. I just needed to put words to it. And yeah, for some reason when I was staying at your place, like all these ideas that I had kind of, became more focused. And I don't know if that's just because, we were talking about music more than I had been kind of, expected or anticipated to or whatever. But yeah, when I was there, all these ideas just kind of came forward, and I was able to record, 7 songs that had kind of been lingering in the back of my mind for a little while. And yeah, I mean, it's nice to have those actually recorded and out there for people to listen to.
Yeah, I just remember there would be whole nights where you'd come into the room here that I'm actually in right now, and you'd have my microphone, your iPad, and just kind of spend hours.
I recorded it all right there where you're sitting.
I know, that's wild to think about, and
that's crazy to think about. Yeah.
I know that with a lot of those, with a lot of our conversations, we were talking about like. Trying to be, because I remember you would come out, you'd write these songs, you'd come out and you'd play them for Lo and I, and
I'd be like, how's this sound?
Right, and then you'd play it like 5 times in a row sometimes, and but like I just remember thinking like, oh, these sound really good when you just sit and play them, like some of the songs that you record, I like a lot of the production you do in them, but sometimes I feel like it kind of your actual voice gets a little bit lost, your actual guitar gets a little bit lost, and it was a really nice just contrast, and just to think like the idea of the album was kind of just like what do you sound like when you're just sitting in the living room playing, And
I remember you, we had conversations like that. I know your Pandemic Relief EP actually, I had a little bit of inspiration from listening to that. I think 7 songs, something about that is just kind of like a sweet spot. Because like as we talked about before, it's, a little longer than an EP, but it's not like overstaying. It's welcome. And, something about just like having that natural sound or whatever, just like what it like sounds like. There's no BS or anything. It's
right, no,
very straightforward.
no auto tune, no vocal doubling. There's just you and a guitar, and
I've never like done that before because I've been so focused, all my musical career into like the production and like doing all these fancy things here and there.
Which is great that you can do that, and some of those things turn out amazing. So I mean, it's not to take away from that. It's just to say, hey, here's another side of kind of what I do, and I think that's a really cool. And I've said this multiple times, but in a way, very courageous because you're bearing it all. You're raw. This is what you sound like. There's nothing to hide behind, and I think that's pretty honorable and like. Trying to do it that way is and definitely, you said the Pandemic Relief may have inspired that a little, but also
definitely
me listening to those tracks and, your process in doing it has definitely been inspiring in some of my newer recordings. And I've been thinking about that more. I will say
too, the more I think about it too, I think some of the inspiration for this came from watching Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh yeah, it's a great
another
movie.
Time. Because I watched it and I was just like, I love the fact that like you have these like really nice sounding songs, but there's like, not much going on. Like it relies on, more so the lyrics and just like that, classic folk sound. And, something about that is just so like, it's so simple.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, like you were saying, it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing to do. Just because like you can hide behind so many effects and you can get carried away in producing songs with like all these other instruments going on. And I just wanted to do something that was like I know if I sit down and play these songs in front of people, it's not going to sound too much different than the actual recordings, which I just thought was a very interesting
and I think
thought.
you definitely succeeded in that. I mean, I think that it's very, very akin to you just sitting and playing those songs. I mean, they're good takes, so it's like the best version of you doing that. But I mean, it's and that's what you want with any recording. You don't want any takes where you're playing sloppy. The idea I feel like of a lot of recording is just like let's pretend like this is the absolute best take for every instrument, like the vocal, the guitar, the bass, the drums, like, but still kind of what it sounds like live, to an extent is what you're shooting for, but just like capturing it in a way that everything sounds like it was the best performance. Like if everybody in the band had their best night, this is what this that's always been my thinking with recording is just like getting it so every instrument is like on their best versions of themselves, but still kind of have that live element to it, which is a hard thing to capture, I think, ultimately. Oh,
absolutely.
But it's funny you say that Inside Llewyn Davis. That's probably and maybe in my top 10 movies. It's hard to, and I would say when I first watched it, like I don't know if I totally got it. I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as...
The first time I watched it, I definitely struggled to get through it, which was, kind of interesting because it's, something that's like, that seems right up, our alley.
Yeah.
It's about music, but it's so...
And a folk singer at that, which is like, a guy who goes around and plays his music and...
Just like any folk song, I feel like that film, the more you watch it, the more you take away from it.
Yeah.
Like you pick up on things that just like hit so close to home.
I think part of the reason for me, Oh Brother Where Art Thou is one of my favorite movies, but there's
yes.
I might even just say it's my favorite. I don't know. It's always tough to really define what is absolutely your favorite best, but that if somebody asked me, it's probably what I would end up and say because it is a great movie. But there's a level of humor in that like really adds such a interest, and the story's interesting.
Right.
And when you watch Inside Llewyn Davis, it's like doesn't really have it's definitely not the same vibe, you know. It definitely takes place, you know.
It's almost a series of misfortunate
unfortunate events.
Yeah, just like basically. Just like all these like, I mean real life things that happen to, in every day.
But especially musician wise, it's just like all the dumbest decisions you could make, or like, and some of it's nice to see in that movie when you rewatch it, like there are reasons he's making a lot of these decisions, to like, but they tend to just be the wrong ones, and that's something I think we can relate to. Maybe a little harder than the average person, and then the music's great, but it's just a different, it's a different vibe. All those performance shots, they're like full songs, and they're like,
I know,
I don't know. That guy is amazingly talented. It's crazy.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I mean he's done.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll appreciate that. But he's done some great movies, all around, but just to, also be able to sing and play that well. I mean, he's got a great voice. And then
he's a talented guy.
I'm a fan of Mumford and Sons, and it was kind of cool that Marcus Mumford had a little part in one of the main song, essentially. But those performance shots are so great because it's like, it really kind of makes you feel like what it would have felt like to be in that room, which is a hard thing to capture. And it just like everybody's so quiet, like it's a listening room, which I've played shows like that here and there, and it really does kind of feel like that. It's like everybody's staring at you. You're kind of like on the other side of a movie screen almost. That's what it feels like. Like if you were at the theater, you're on the big screen and everybody's just got all their attention on you, and you could hear a pin drop. So which it's a fun spot to be, I think, to play those types of shows, but it's an enormous amount of pressure as well to have all eyes on you. But
definitely.
Anyway, I just think that's a great movie, and it's funny that that's kind of the inspiration for an album of yours I really liked. But I really like.
Yeah.
But
well, and I also like something about, like another thing about that movie is like there's sort of this like vibe of like constantly like moving forward, even when all these like things are happening, all these like negative things, and sometimes I mean there's very little positive things that happen in
and
that film.
I did mention like they're the humor, like the Oh Brother Where Art Thou humor is a lot more in your face. When you rewatch Inside Llewyn Davis, you start to pick up on a lot of the little things that are funny that maybe you didn't catch the first time, but they're very subtly funny, like when he makes the decision. He goes and records with Justin Timberlake, whatever his character's name was, and Adam Driver's...
One of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, Adam Driver's background singing in that.
Outer space.
Is just
outer
hysterical, and it just rubs Oscar Isaac like the wrong way completely, and he's like, who is this guy?
It's like, who wrote this? And Justin Timberlake's like, I did.
And then he makes the terrible decision to, not get any money on the back end, just get the payout right up front. And then later you hear that song on the radio and you're like, oh man, he could have made some actual money, but he needed the money right then to do something else. Or like the scene where he's auditioning for this club owner guy, and they're in the club. And, he's playing this, like, amazing performance. Like, it's like he's so invested in it, and you could tell he knows he sounds... some people, when they play... Well, I'll just speak from my own personal... When I play and I know I sound good, I get a feeling, and you can almost see that feeling, in his face. Like, he's really putting it all out there, really performing well.
He knows he's killing it.
Yeah, and then at the end, the guy's like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think it would pay very well. But
and it's just crazy because it's like, he put everything on the line. The guy sat there like this, like the whole time, and just kind of listened. Was, you couldn't tell, you couldn't make out any, like, was he enjoying it? Was he, and then at the end, he's just like, I just don't see it. And, that rejection is so just brutal because, in a sense, he's playing like this amazing performance. And then, even then it doesn't cut it. And like that, for a musician, I feel like always hit, like that scene hits me a little harder maybe than most, because it does feel like sometimes, you're in that situation and you just there's nothing you can do to like, get to that next level, no matter how good your performance is. But it's a great. So let's get back into your album. Sorry to get off on that tangent there, but that is a great movie. One of my faves.
Great movie.
So
yeah, definitely.
Let's go through the EP song by song a little bit here. So song number 1, title track, which is "No Place to Be," I believe.
Yeah, "No Place to Be." That was kind of the. It wasn't the first song I had written, but that was sort of the first song where I was like, oh, I have this cohesive idea to have this sort of like. I don't know if you would call it a road trip album, because it's kind
just
of
a road
not
album.
Really that.
Right.
Just a road album, but yeah, that was the song where I was like thinking of all these places that I've been, and like sort of losing this sense of like having almost like a home in a way. Like it almost like was just this feeling of like it doesn't even like matter where I am. There's nothing to like really tie me down at this point in my life, so it's just like going all these different places, and like it's kind of disorienting.
Yeah, and I do think that's like an archetypal kind of story, when somebody leaves home and then you can never really go home again, that idea. And then, the title of the song,
well, it's like
being "No Place to Be."
For me it was like the pros of it is like going and like seeing all these different, places, and then like the cons of it, I suppose, would be, not so much the fear of missing out, but just like all these things happening, like back home, for example, and like all this time passing, and just kind of like, waking up and realizing like, okay, so this is like this is what you're sacrificing, and basically, yeah, that's kind of what leads into the next song.
Well, I want to touch a little bit more on "No Place to Be." I do remember the time that you wrote it in a pretty quick session, and then you recorded it like right away. And I think that was the first song you recorded like and got a good take of, and you're like, this is what I'm doing for this album. Or
recorded "No Place to Be" in like one take,
right?
Literally, that was the only one I think I recorded in one take. Like recorded the guitar and then obviously the vocals, and then that was it. And the cool thing about that too is you were, I think, giving guitar lessons in the other room, and I came home from work and Lo was in the living room, and I was like, I have this melody in my head, Lo, and I'm like, it's gonna go something like this, and I literally wrote that song in like 15 minutes, like while you were in there.
Right.
And by the time you came out, I performed it for you, and that was like the first time of me actually playing that song for like, you, and it was like done.
Yeah, and then it was recorded not much longer or later than that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, maybe a couple hours later I recorded it,
and then I
listened to it like
1,000
30 times that night.
Yeah, I remember checking it on I got that weird little speaker that's like for the hearing impaired, and for some reason
you got that at like a garage sale, right?
Pretty much, and it for some reason just sounds great when you plug a phone into it, and
I'm actually jealous. I really like that speaker.
Yeah, it's a one of a kind thing, I don't know.
Yeah, but you can't even play anything out of it now because you got an iPhone now, and it's it's got like a jack port, right?
Yeah. I could get the Bluetooth thing. I got one of those for my car at least, so I can listen to music in the car. But anyway, but yeah, I just think that that sums up kind of at least the start of what that album, what your album was, going to become is, and just the idea.
It's sort of like the setting of the rest of the songs. Like that kind of sets up the setting, and then like everything that follows is just like things happening within that setting.
And just basically, the idea of, you kind of feel like you don't have anywhere to be, and that's like the kind of the concept for the like where do you feel at home, and it kind of feels like nowhere. And
it's both like a laid back thing, but at the same time it's like also kind of terrifies me.
Right.
A little bit. Like I don't know how I could get like complacent like forever, with that kind of lifestyle, but it's been interesting, that's for sure.
All right, and then that brings us to track number 2. So what's track number 2? I can't remember offhand.
So So track 2 is Already Gone.
And that was a later track you wrote, if I recall correctly. Wasn't, I feel like you had...
I think that might have been the last
Right.
one, maybe.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
second to last.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, I just, that one was, that's a pretty, like, straightforward song, I would say. It's kind of a little bit emotional for me, I guess. I think I didn't write that like about one thing like in particular. There were actually like a few different things that I kind of tied together. But basically the sense is just like, nothing really like matters at that point. Like you're already gone, man.
Right. Yeah, it's got a cool melody. I like that part where it goes really low with the vocal.
Yeah.
But yeah. So and then track number 3.
Track number 3 is Only Time Will Tell.
Yeah, that one's a fun... I just feel like that one has like a really nice catchy chorus. I mean, the whole song's really catchy, but it's just like... It sticks in my head pretty easy.
Yeah, that was the one that was a little bit more like detached and a little bit like I kind of wanted to paint this sort of like nightmarish, hell basically, where these events were kind of like happening, and it's almost dreamlike in a way.
A little bit more abstract
wanted to go
than like No Place to Be, which is like, this is exactly what, kind of how I'm feeling and what my life's like. Whereas this song
is a little bit more open for interpretation, right. I think.
But definitely a super catchy tune, and I definitely dig it. After that, we have
Wondering.
That one, I forget about that one a lot, but when it comes on, I'm like, man, this is a good tune every time.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, don't forget now. But I think Wondering was probably my second favorite on the project. That was actually one that I had written last year.
Right.
Like at the beginning of last year, and just never really did anything with it. I made a video of it so I wouldn't forget. But I always loved that finger picking riff or whatever you want to call it.
That really brings like a different vibe to the album, because all the other songs are pretty much just chord kind of... right? I mean,
but it has that. It actually has that sort of traditional like folk structure, where it kind of like starts on one chord, goes to another, goes back, and then adds like one more chord that's like different. But it's very simple. Like it's just like a 3-chord folk structure.
Yeah.
That you've probably heard before. I just kind of played it, a little differently.
Yeah, your finger picking part is definitely more on the interesting side than just kind of throwing some chords together.
And the reason I wanted to include that song is because I think it had it fit exactly the vibe of what I was going for on this project, even though I had written it last year.
And I think we had a few conversations about whether you thought it would fit or I thought it would fit, and I think we both kind of agreed that it would be a nice addition.
And because it's just about like time basically passing by and like thinking about all these things that like maybe have happened, like I don't know.
Like I don't know. Yeah, and it's definitely a catchy tune. So that's we're to track number 4, which is.
So we're on track 5.
Oh, 5. Okay.
On My Way.
On My Way, right. This one has a really traditional folk sound to me. For out of all the songs,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like this one has like it like reminds me of a song. It kind of reminds me of a song I've heard, but it's like not one that I know. You know what I mean? Because it's very like structured, and the way you play it is very attuned to kind of that folk style.
For sure. Yeah, I just like how it starts off like in the morning, and then in the afternoon, and then the evening. Just like another one of those songs that kind of like drives this like continuing story a little bit.
Yeah, I always like songs like that where it's like the form of the song almost takes over when you're writing it, instead of like, you're being really involved in every line. You're like, well, the structure of the song is this, so I kind of leads you down maybe a different road than you might have gotten to if you had, tried to, not pay attention to structure of the song and just write it, So I always think that's kind of an an interesting idea and makes for something kind of more unique in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure.
But
And then the next song is Wishes, which
all right, so
I think is your favorite.
yeah,
your favorite
we'll
on
talk
the
about this
project,
one maybe a little
I believe.
longer than the rest because I do feel like this is one of my favorites from the album. I tend, my the way I veer most of the time is a little bit darker than I think some of your other tunes. I mean, not that they don't have their little hints of things you're saying that are dark,
Yeah.
but this song,
Yeah.
I think part of it is it's so relatable. Everybody's experienced loss in some way, and everybody
Right.
wishes things about themselves that were
And
different.
loss can mean a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Whether it's like death, obviously, but like also just like forgetting, people just like, as time goes on, just kind of like losing touch with, certain people that maybe you think about every once in a while, but, you never got the chance to, just like have that conversation with them one last time.
Yeah.
And like, I really appreciate, what you meant in my life sort of thing.
Yeah, but
And that was a song that was the other song that I had actually written last year. But with all this, grief that I had been experiencing this past year, I felt like that was just one that like I had to put on this project. Like, I don't know, the lyrics kind of hit so close to home that I was just like, I might regret it if I don't put this on there.
I always, I don't know.
It was kind of a last minute decision, actually.
Yeah, and we had
little bit.
definitely more than a handful of
And
conversations.
you kind of helped me make that.
I pushed very hard for that to make the cut. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something like I heard your original recording of it, and I really liked the song then. But there was just
And
something.
I actually prefer that original recording.
But there,
with the double vocals.
for me though, when you were here and you would just play that song on the couch, I was like, this just needs to be captured in some way. This because I feel like it just. You're laying it, you're more vulnerable in this. It's a very vulnerable song to begin with, and I feel like just you sitting and playing it as if you were in the living room. There's just like a more vulnerable. There's a lot. There's more.
I just feel like
raw.
whenever I like listen to that one, it's almost just like me talking. Like I didn't really like try that hard with that song, and I think that actually plays in it.
It accentuates it for sure. And
for sure,
I don't know. Like I said, that song just always hits me a little bit hard when I hear it. Like I remember doing like a recording where
for sure. And I think it's probably the one that I enjoy playing the least, even because it does hit so close to home. And when I initially wrote it last year, I was going through some crap that was really tough at the time, and that one also came like
pretty quick.
I think songs like that just come pretty quick, because it's like you don't have to think about it. Like when you have like those kinds of thoughts, like it's like you just like write them down essentially. Like,
and then also I do think there's something to it. You're kind of saying it was kind of a song that you don't feel like you had to try that hard to sing. There's something about the effortlessness in your voice in that song where you're almost talking, but the melody's still really nice in it. Like it's catchy, it catches me, but it's just a really nice vocal tone on top of the simple chords.
2 chords.
Oh, you're frozen.
And that melody stays pretty consistent, I would say.
Right.
But yeah, and then the last song on the album is "End of the Road," which kind of just wraps up everything.
Yeah, and I think you wrote that actually a little sooner than. It wasn't quite the end of the song, but when you wrote, or the end of the last song you wrote or anything, but when you wrote it,
so
you were like, this would be a great ending.
I think I wrote "End of the Road" actually after "No Place to Be," because like my thinking was, if I have a start song, because I knew "No Place to Be" was going to be the first song, I was like, okay, now I need the last song on there to sort of wrap up everything that comes in between the two. And so that was kind of the concept, just like
here's your start, here's your finish, and now I just fill in the gaps. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's a cool.
Yeah, that made it so much easier to just like finish the whole thing.
Right. Well,
tie everything together.
it makes for a very coherent album, kind of, you know. Like these are the folk songs.
For
So the
sure.
folk part and the performance style you pick to do it ties everything together really nice. But then having that song at the beginning,
For sure.
you know, "No Place to Be," which kind of inspired the whole thing, and then at the very end, the song "End of the Road," you know, kind of putting a period on
I
it.
like to think of it. I like to think of it like if "No Place to Be" is the introduction, and then the other songs that come before "End of the Road" are sort of just like the things that are happening
The photographs.
in this setting, and then "End of the Road" is sort of that conclusion,
Right.
and sort of like that review of like what we were talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, grief, uncertainty, travel, how these things basically affect your mindset over
And
a
that one's a
period
little
of
bit
time.
on the longer side, if I recall correctly, right, than some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's barely over 4 minutes long,
Right.
which is, because most of the songs I write are within that 2 and 3.
Well, especially
minute
for
mark.
this project, because, you know, it's just you and a guitar.
Yeah.
There's nothing to fill in those extra spaces. So you just kind of, you know, right in your face right away and everything. And
What I like about it overall is like, it's 7 songs, but the project is under 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very short and sweet, and something about that brevity is like you can just like go back and like listen to it again.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not exceeding its welcome, which is easy to do when you have songs like, that push that 7 song.
yeah,
mark, whatever.
like a 14 track album with multiple
Right.
songs that are over 5 minutes might not be a great idea.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, well,
For sure.
I think we covered it. Is there anything else you want to say
Yeah.
about the project, or?
Yeah, well, first of all, again, it's No Place to Be. It's out on all streaming platforms. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music. Just about anything you stream music on, you should be able to find it. If you want to check out my YouTube, Ryan Edward Wolf, I have a couple music videos to accompany a few of the songs on there. I have a lyric video that was pretty cool that I had somebody on Fiverr do. That turned out really cool, I think.
Yeah, I liked
So
it.
that's worth checking out. That's for the song Only Time Will Tell. But yeah, go check it out. And yeah, Tyler, I really appreciate you doing this and being able to talk about the songs a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
And so I'll try to put all the links and everything like in the description so you can click on the album really easy and give that a stream. So I think that's it. Appreciate you coming by, and I'm sure we'll talk again pretty soon.
Definitely,
right.
Tyler. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks anybody who took the time to listen, and we'll talk to you next time. All right. Bye.